Often when we are programming, when we code, we are creating these small entities that we can actually call upon at a later time to do something for us. That's when we need an entity called method. What is a method? Well, a method is an enclosed body that allows us to create some sort of logic inside of this enclosed body that does something for us. And then we can actually either return something so that then we can call that method, okay, because the method would have a name, and then something will happen. All right, let's see what we mean by that. Well, what I mean by that is very simple. If we look at this public static void main, this is what we call a method. So we've seen this before, and we never really talked about it, but this is an example of a method. So this is a main method, the main entrance for any Java programming. You notice there's a few things here. So inside here, we have what we call arguments. We'll talk about arguments at a later time, but most importantly, we have these parentheses around, which signify this is indeed a method at this point, okay? And most importantly, we have our curly braces. These curly braces, of course, end at the bottom here, right? This means this is the body of our method, okay? Now, the reason why we don't have to call this method anywhere here is because it is main, meaning every time Java runs, whatever we have inside our main method here, it will run automatically. But of course, we want to create our own methods, right? Because that is the point. That is the part of the customization of programming, because we want to create our own methods that can do certain things that we cannot find in the Java library, for instance, or if we just want to compartmentalize our code. Okay, so I got rid of all of those comments code and put it outside here. Okay, so you still have it to compact our method here. Okay, so how do we create a method? Right? So something that we can customize, such as the main here, our own method per se. Well, simply, we have to get out of our method, but still inside of this main class here. Okay, we're going to get out of that. So outside here, we can then create our method. Now, here is what we need to do in order for us to create our own method. We have to say public, okay, static, void, and then the name of our method. In this case, I'm going to call this show name as such. And to finalize, I have to put parentheses like that. And then, of course, we have to create a body of this method. Okay, this parentheses here means this is a method, and this is the name of method. This void here just means it doesn't return anything. We'll talk about return types shortly. All right, so now we have this public static void show name. This is what we call modifiers. And again, we'll talk about all of those at a later time. But just focus now on the syntax and also adding the name for our method. So now here, inside of our body, as we say, whatever's inside of our body, in these braces here, it is what is going to be run. So I'm going to say south like that. I'm going to say inside here, put a string that says from show name. Now, let's save this and give it a run. All right, we still have from previous stuff here. Let me go ahead and perhaps comment this all out like that and say run. And you can see there's nothing showing here, okay? But you might say, well, what's going on? Because we have our show name here and we do have a system out printing from show name and nothing is showing in our console here. Well, the reason why nothing is showing is because the show name here hasn't been called. You see that the same concept we had about variables, where we create a variable, that bucket, we give it a name so that we can then recall it at a later time. The same happens with functions or methods, right? In this case here, we have to call it. Because if we don't call it, then nothing's going to show, right? Because this is its own compartment. It doesn't exist per se until we call it. So where we call it? Well, we have to call it inside of void main here because this is the main entry point. So the moment I say show name, because we have this amazing IDE here, it gives us hints. So it says, okay, SHO, that probably means show name or short. In this case here, it's show name. That's a method that we just created. Hit enter and there it is. If you save this and go ahead and run, we should see now from show name. You see now we compartmentalized a piece of code, a very simplistic one nonetheless, but yet a very important concept here that you are learning, which is we have this separated part of code that we created as a method. Okay, an entity that we can do all sort of different things inside of it. And then we can call inside of our main, as we see here, and then we see from show name, which is exactly what we are printing out inside of the method. All right. Very good. So this means I could go ahead and take all of this information we had here. I'm going to copy this if I want to do so and put it all here and uncomment that out so we can actually see things happening. Save like that. And if we run this, look, it says from show name, because that is what we have at the bottom here. But then we have this for loop always working as well. Okay, because now we're calling it up here. So we can get rid of this and the result's still going to be the same. Much cleaner, right? So this now makes our void main here very small. So all the logic, in fact, we can even hide it if we wish to do so there. And there's just only show name. We can fold it like that so it doesn't show all of the content in our show name method. And voila. Okay, so there it is. Many things we can do, of course, here, as you can see, and we can also create as many methods as we want. So I can come up here or at the bottom, say another public static void another method as such, and then I'm going to have here s out. I'm going to say another method. Run, we should see nothing. You know why? Because we need to call here. There we go. Another method like that. Save and run. We should see from show name another method. Now you see it goes and shows the from show name first. Why is that? Well, it's because we are calling show name first. So everything the compiler, that is, will read from top to bottom. So if I change the order in which these are called, and let's run that, you notice that now we have the another method and it goes through the for loop and then says from show name. Okay, so the order in which you put your calls is very important. Now the cool thing also here is that inside, for instance, it is another method. Oops, this should be another method. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake as long as you're consistent, right? There you go. So I was saying here, the other thing we can do is actually pass what we call passing a parameter. Now, passing a parameter allows us to then pass certain variables that are expected for this method to handle, right? So in this case here, if you remember, I said here on my main method, we have this string arg. So this is a parameter of type string, essentially is an array of strings, right? So that is the parameters that we can actually pass into this method here. So with that, we can also do with any other methods that we create. So to customize even further our methods. So suppose that we want to make sure that this method, whenever it's called, it expects, right? So if we pass a parameter, that means this method expects to receive something in order for it to function. So if I come here and say I want to pass a string, you always have to pass the type of parameter you need to pass. They say something like this. Notice the moment you do that, we're going to have a problem here. If you hover over, it's going to say another method in parentheses string. That means we expect to have a string type parameter cannot be applied to an empty. So what he's saying here is that we said that another method expects a string, yet we haven't passed anything. We're passing an empty parameter, which is wrong, right? So now the compiler is not very happy about that, okay? Because it is indeed a contract. If you come here and click there, it's going to say create method, another method in class, and so forth. These are just ways in which the IDE is trying to help us out, okay? So what we need to do, obviously, is to pass something, meaning any string type inside of this method. So I can come up here and just put inside of parentheses, and right when you do that, something happens. Now, this is an IDE helper, okay? So most people get confused and they see that something here and dot or colon, and they're like, what's going on? Do I have to add that myself? No, that is not added at all. That is just the IDE telling you what is it that we are putting inside of another method as a parameter. Okay, so again, this something here, it's not something that you must write. It just happens because the IDE is helping us to say, okay, this is what is expected. Okay, so here I'm going to say hello like that. If you run, we should see nothing, right? Because nothing really happens. Let me go ahead and comment this out so we don't have a lot of things happening at once. So let's run there. It says another method. Well, let's go here inside of another method, okay? So the thing that's happening here, everything is working fine, right? We have said, okay, we are passing this something, which is a type of string, as you see here. By the way, I need to emphasize this. This would be something like this, another method, and then hello, like that. Okay, so this is how many other editors or IDEs will show it. Okay, so do not get confused by this something here. So this something here, you notice, is going to be the same name as what we passed here. Okay, so it's just something that it is added for us. It's not going to be compiled. It's a visual thing that this IDE helps us know, okay, we are actually passing a parameter something. Okay, very good. So in reality, it's going to be something like this. All right, I know I repeated myself, but I just want to make sure you don't get confused. Very good. So the reason why we're not seeing this hello, because that is indeed what's being passed here, right? And if you can see also when we hover over, it says parameter something is never used, right? That's another great thing about using a nice IDE as it is. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, such as this Android Studio, okay? So it gives us hints of things that haven't been used, certain potential errors and so forth. So it kind of helps us out in so many ways. In this case, it's telling us, hey, this is not, it's never been used. So you got to do something about it. It's not an error per se, as you can see, everything works, but it just gives us a heads up, if you will. So like we said, we're passing a parameter is because we want to use it inside of this method, right? We want to do something so that we return or we show it. In this case here, because we haven't used it, that's why nothing is showing. That's why whatever we're passing hello, it's not going to be passed through inside a system out because we didn't call it. Think of this as just a variable, okay? So we need to call it in order to get that variable. Now, when we put something, let's see here, say plus something, and we pass this, whatever is coming in, then things are going to change. Put a space there so you can see the difference. Let's run, and you're going to say another method, hello. Where is this hello from? Well, this hello is from this hello that we passed inside of our another method as a parameter, right? That's the whole idea. So we pass parameters because we want to be able to use the parameter inside of our method here. So now we have this different layer of customization, if you will, of our method because we can pass whatever we want. We can pass hey and run. Guess what? We're going to say another method, hey. Doesn't matter what we pass as long as, that's very important, as long as we are passing indeed a string type because this is a contract. We say whatever we need to pass as a parameter that we can use inside of this body, method body, has to be string. I obviously cannot put 2. Why? Because 2 is not a string. In fact, if you hover over or click here, it's going to tell you exactly. Change first parameter method, another method from string to int. So now it's giving us some sort of hints of things that we can do to solve this problem. But we know better, so we're going to just say Control Z here to make it a string. Types again in Java. It's very, very, very important. Okay, so what I want you to do is to create as many methods as you want and see if you can pass next time a string, pass a char, pass a boolean, pass anything else you want and see how that works. Okay, so don't go to the next video until you do this little exercise.